Good morning. Welcome to the presentation theater here at Connected Media IP. Thank you for joining us this morning. I'm John Ward, EVP of the Americas for Friend MTS, a global content protection and anti-piracy company. Here to talk about what we do on the content protection side, and looking forward to doing that today. And joining me?
Hi, this is Ali Hajjat, VP of Marketing at Intertrust ExpressPlay. I'm excited. You're going to have a great topic today. Let's kick this off.
Let's do it.
All right. So the topic is about end-to-end content protection. John, basically end-to-end is a frequently used word, right? We hear it a lot, sometimes overused, and it means actually different things when it comes to different technologies. How about you start by saying what you think end-to-end content protection is and what are the approaches to end-to-end content protection?
Sure. So for Friend MTS, we look at end-to-end. It really begins with DRM, right? Proper implementation of digital rights management. It really starts there. It's the initial lock on the door of the house, right? From that, and properly implemented, then you want cameras taking a look at what's going on. So we do fingerprinting, digital fingerprinting, where we take snapshots of moving video, create a digital signature where we can then go out and identify possible leaks in the ecosystem. To get a little more granular though, we can do watermarking. From there, we are able to actually look and determine who the bad actor or actors are at a subscriber level, or even more so at a distribution level. For a content provider who may send their product to multiple endpoints, we're able to take a look at it and tell who actually would be causing the leak and hopefully work with the content provider to stop it.
Nice, yeah, that's great.
So, Ali, when we talk about content protection, what are some of the end components of end-to-end content protection, and basically the solutions used when implementing an effective solution?
Right. I mean, there are several components to end-to-end anti-piracy and end-to-end content protection. You mentioned DRM, but generally, basically for any content, it starts by making sure the authorized users and subscribers, the paying subscribers, can only access the content. So in the context of broadcast, there's obviously conditional access, and in the context of streaming, it's DRM that needs to be used. But obviously, it doesn't end there. So another component which is really frequently used in the streaming is geo-blocking or geofencing. I mean, there's more and more usage of VPN by bad actors or pirates to actually avoid regional restrictions. And so geo-blocking, geofencing is used, even it helps with credential sharing to some extent. Content monitoring is important, right? When there is piracy, you have to find the kind of where the pirated links are in the wide web, and complement that with forensic watermarking. So you want to track down the source of piracy. And then when it comes to devices, obviously you have to protect any tampering that might happen to the applications, to player, to different type of devices. So, code obfuscations and application shieldings are other technologies that are used in order to make sure you are actually covering all the pieces of video delivery chain. So basically, these are each a component that address a specific security issue, but all of them together, a combination of all of these components, that really brings the end-to-end content protection, right?
Yep, great.
But I mean, I guess it's important to, John, when is the best time or the ideal time to actually implement content protection? Some of the service providers may not have some of these components already deployed. Is there any way that they can maybe quickly and easily add these components without disrupting your system or their workflow?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think, ideally we would want to be involved from the very beginning of a streaming service, the contemplation of building a streaming platform. I think from there, the technology aside for a moment, we can help build a sort of a content protection strategy that again starts with DRM. When we're involved in the very beginning, we can be a part of the integration at the encoding level, at the CDN level, or at the player level, but ultimately, a lot of our customers already have had streaming services on the air, and they've been on the air for a while. So we have lightweight SDKs that we can deploy Again, make it a lot of times these SDKs can be deployed and put on the air in less than a day with testing, and we make it it's got to be a very frictionless experience no matter what we do. I mean, for both of our groups, right? Ultimately, it's got to have the ability to be scalable, it's got to be deployable, and it's also got to have absolutely no effect on the user experience. So all of those are absolutely critical. Ali, you and I have done a bunch of these conferences and we've talked about a bunch. I was at a conference earlier in, I think it was March, where a pretty well-known provider in the industry who actually sells DRM was talking about and kind of made the comment that DRM, that in his opinion, was a complete waste of time, that you shouldn't even consider it as part of a content protection strategy, and it was kind of pointless and useless to think about that. I'm sure you have some strong thoughts on that.
Yeah, obviously, yeah. So basically, when you look at it, DRM is used for making sure paying subscribers can access the content, right? It's absolutely needed for any paid service, whether it's a SWAT service or a live streaming, subscription-based streaming, sports streaming platform. I mean, DRM enables actually different business models, how long the content is available. It basically makes sure who has the right to access the content. I mean, it's one of the main requirements for licensing agreements with premium, basically content, whether it's sports or studio contents. I mean, I can understand that people have difficulties implementing DRM when it comes to covering different devices. I mean, there's fragmentation of devices, fragmentation of OSs, which each support different DRMs. So, I mean, that's why a multi-DRM cloud service like Intertrust, ExpressPlay offers really an easy deployment model that you can cover all the different devices and all the different DRMs. Again, in order to make sure you actually are capitalizing and monetizing on your platform.
But this just in, it's not black magic.
Not.
People do this all day long, and because it's hard or seemingly hard, that's not a reason to not even try to do it.
Exactly. But I mean, you have to leverage the experts in the industry, right? When you have a tooth that needs to be pulled out, you don't pull it out yourself. You go to the dentist. So if you are looking to implement the right security strategy, obviously you look at the vendors who have been doing this. They're experts. They have the capacity and the resources that can implement it and support it for you.
Absolutely.
Let's talk about watermarking and content monitoring. So I mean, more and more we see actually content owners are putting forensic watermarking as one of the requirements for licensing content. But sometimes they don't enforce actually monitoring the watermark content to find out where the leaks are. So can operators usually go and check the box, implement forensic watermarking, but not do the content monitoring, try to save costs? Is that really the right approach?
Look, I think you're either doing this or you're not doing it. And to tick a box, look, I'll tell you, previous to my role at Friend MTS, I was CTO of In Demand and had to deal with a bunch of carriage contracts that had very specific requirements to DRM, but basically had one paragraph about anti-piracy that said licensee will take best known industry attempts to prevent piracy. Look, I think you have to make this a priority to follow through with it from the beginning to the end. To do one without the other, really, I don't think makes much sense. To be honest and truthful, I think coming from years of live production and live operations experience, for me, it's, and what you guys charge, we're very familiar with what we charge. Right. These are pennies on the dollar compared to the actual cost of acquiring and producing content. But the problem is that these are viewed as a cost center, and they're viewed as part of a budget that sort of stick up like a nail on a piece of wood. It's easy to kind of whack it off and whack it down. So it's got to be taken seriously. And look, it also goes back to actually, I think it's a bigger level job at these companies. Right. A lot of times, as I've said sort of in these conferences, a lot of these functions get slapped on a desk of a lawyer who looks at it and groans and says, I'm not going to get paid any more money. Right. All right, fine, slap a watermark on it, we've complied, we haven't done it. It's got to be taken seriously, because if it isn't, look, we all were familiar about Netflix last week, and I think there's other factors that factor into that, but certainly this is one of them. password sharing is going to come up more and more, and will be kind of an issue moving forward. Ali, 3 big takeaways from our little talk today. What would you, if you had to like evangelize, what would be your 3 big things?
So first, obviously, content is king, and you have to protect it with an end-to-end security approach, right? More and more, we see that operators are taking advantage of a well-thought content protection strategy. Basically, they cannot wait until they see piracy in their platform. That's really a reactive approach. You have to be proactive in the sense that you monitor any illegal activity throughout the video delivery and monetization workflow. Then the other, I think, takeaway is really about implementing content protection from the beginning as part of the content strategy, right? You cannot wait again until you see piracy happening. Think about it from the beginning, put it in your workflow, and more we see actually there are use cases that show how service providers are reducing churns, and they're reducing kind of lost revenue because they're implementing these approaches we talked about. And lastly is, I think the third takeaway would be, there's never late to add new components, right? So we talked about quite a few components, and if you're missing some of these components, you can still implement them very quickly. So talk to the vendors and basically try to implement all of them as a combination, because again, your security is as good as your weakest link, right? So if you're missing a component, you have to think about how you address that issue.
You guys have been watching the slideshow. You see piracy is a real thing. These are real numbers, and my guess is these are numbers that kind of go around the industry and different groups kind of tout them, but ultimately my guess is that the numbers are actually bigger than these. And it's a real pressing thing. I think piracy is something we can all agree on. That's a definite thing that's got to be considered, but sort of the evangelical approach is trying to make people take steps to try to take care of this. So appreciate you being a partner.
Thank
you for the time today.
Of course, no, thank you.
If you guys have questions for either of us, we'll be off stage. Feel free to pull us aside, and love to talk to you about what both of our companies do today. So thank you guys very much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
That was great.
All right.